Ladies and gentlemen, every time I interview Bo Polny, it causes my brain to explode. Every time I interview Bo Polny, I want to say, whoa, Pony, calm down. It's crazy because he drops so many knowledge bombs per capita. So nothing further ado, it's Whoa with Bo. Well, Tribe Nation, on today's show, I'm heavily hopped up on Dayquil. So we have really no idea what's going to happen. You shouldn't be driving a motor vehicle, let alone leading a podcast with this much Dayquil in my system. But anytime the weather changes from summer to fall or some kind of weather change, I get the allergies, and then I do the Dayquil thing, and my wife tells me I should dial down the Dayquil, and I crank up the Dayquil, and I have about 3 days to kind of purge the land of the allergy symptoms, but then I'm back in my flow. And so here to take charge of today's show and to keep today's show heading onward and upward is Bo Polny. Welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
Great, Clay. Nice to see you, and really looking forward to next weekend for the Doral Hotel in Miami, Florida. So thanks for putting that on, and you are a true blessing to all of us patriots here in this world. So thank you for all you do, Clay.
Oh, well, hey, and I will be well rested, and I'll be back to my normal form in time for that event. Now, Bo, I'm going to give you screen share here so you can present to us that which you believe that we need to know today, and I'll be taking notes there. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the permission to go ahead and take over the control there, sir.
As I blow through this, Clay, ask questions. The better, the more questions, the better it is. But I want to give the world an understanding of what's going on, because I know there's a lot of chaos right now. I've got McCarthy just got kicked out yesterday. All this chaos is going on in the world, and it's supposed to be. And so let's start off by just saying, the events in the world, they're not political, they're biblical. We are living in biblical times. When you look back in the Bible, all the events of the Bible, from Jesus on the cross to the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and you got Daniel being thrown in the lions, and these are all biblical events. But at the time, you just thought they were events. They were, but these are not political. These are biblical events going down in our world, and so we are now at a really critical time point in the world. So we're going to watch things manifest right in front of us as we race into the end of the year. I'm going to repeat that. As we race into the end of the year, it's going to get crazy and exciting all at the same time. Depends on what side of the fence you sit on, because it's going to be the best of times, in the worst of times, and that's how God operates. So, when the glory comes on the earth, when the truth comes out of what these people done, it's going to be the worst day and days they've ever had in their lives. On the other end, when the truth is what's been suppressing God's church. So we're waiting for things to manifest on this earth. So let's start off with a story of time. This is all, when you go back to Israel, you always want to start off with Israel, because Israel was God's, God chose Israel, United States then chose God. So these are covenant nations. So it's really important to understand the word covenant, because the United States is a covenant with God. God also has a covenant with Israel. What happens to Israel ultimately in time happens to the United States. Different characters, different time window, but the same type of event is happening from a area of the world then now to more of a global enterprise, what's happening in the world. So 1913, what we had was the start of the Israel-Arab conflict. So this all began in 1913. Then 35 years later, we get into what happened specifically with Israel, is they proclaim themselves a state. So this would happen in 1948, May 14th. And it's interesting because on that exact day, Clay, Trump ends up being 700 days old from his day of birth. So he's born 700 days later, Israel's proclaimed a state. And you will see throughout this presentation, the number 7 is like all over all these events. They know that from a timing standpoint with regards to Trump, because he's tied in directly with biblical prophecy. So 35 years go by, we end up getting it in 1948. Israel proclaims its independence. Within 48 hours, a massive war breaks out because no one wants Israel to have their own free state. And so then you have the War of 1948. 19 years go by, and you get to the War of 1967. So the War of 1967 ends up being how many days? So we know that war, the 6-Day War. Why was it a 6-day war? Well, when you read scriptures, you'll start to understand that God works in his times and in his seasons. And specifically, the number 6 is stated in Exodus. And basically, it says that there's 6 days, and it's right in one of the 10 commandments. You're supposed to have a Sabbath day. The 7th day you rest. So There was a 6-day war. On the seventh day, God rested. It was over on the sixth. So at the end of the sixth, it was over. And that's important to understand when you look at the time windows. So that was 1967. And then, we've got Leviticus. I want to always reference, because, Clay, you always say, go back to scripture. Don't take my word for it. Let's always look at scriptures. What does scripture say? Well, when you read Leviticus, thou shalt consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land and to all of its inhabitants. Okay, well, that's scripture that's written in Leviticus. Well, let's apply that time window of Leviticus to the 6-day war. You got the 6-day war, 50 years. Guess what year you get to? 2017. In Rosh Hashanah 2017, you have the Revelation. This is again scriptural, Revelation 12. Revelation 12 sign is precisely 50 years from the 6-day war. So that's interesting. So you have the birth in the heavenlies, the same starry alignment that occurred in 2 BC when Jesus Christ was born. So you have 2,000 years go by, and you have the same starry alignment, the Revelation 12 sign manifest again in the heavenlies, 50 years to the exact time point from the 6-day war. Now, why is that important? Because every time I go on your stage, I always reference the scripture Isaiah 61. Isaiah 61 speaks very clearly. It says the year of the Lord's favor, which is a jubilee. That's what the year of the Lord's favor is. And then it says a day of vengeance. So we try to figure out the two things. We want to know the year of the Lord's favor, but also the day of vengeance we want to figure out. But no one's really going to know the day of the vengeance because that's a secret. But the year of the Lord's favor we can calculate. So let's calculate. So from 1967, 50 years takes us to what? 2017. You add 6 more years because it has to complete at the 6th year, because the 7th year is a year of what? A rest. And again, you've had Jonathan Cahn on your show. You've talked to Jonathan Cahn. Biblically, it's Exodus 23, verses 10 through 11. And what does it say? It says very specifically, you are to rest. You're to finish plowing your fields on the 6th year and be finished on the 6th, because the 7th year is a year of rest. You don't touch the fields, you leave it alone. It's a year of rest. So again, you can look at it from a day standpoint. It talks in, you're supposed to have a Sabbath day, a day of rest. So that's in a week. And also in a yearly type of scenario, same exact scenario. The number 7 is a year of rest, and the 6th year is the year of last work. So 6 years from the Revelation 12 sign is 2023. So right now, this year, Clay, is 2023, 6 years from Revelation 12 sign. Next year is a year of rest. Please ask your question.
Well, I think a lot of people right now, as they're listening to this presentation about time, they're also concerned about the FEMA alert test that's being done today. I think a lot of people have been emailing me, asking me about this. It's the FEMA and FCC. They plan a nationwide alert test that should probably be taking place in 4 minutes. So we're recording the show, but in 4 minutes from now is when this FEMA test is supposed to start happening. So people are in the back of their mind, they're going, why don't you ask them about that? So I'd like it if you could just take a second and say, does that FEMA and FCC plan nationwide emergency alert test on October 4th, 2023, taking place at the specific time that we were given as 2:20 p.m. Eastern. Does that in any way, shape, or form relate to what you're breaking down on today's presentation?
Definitely tied in with what we're going to talk about today, because specifically, see, what we want to look again is time and when are they doing this, okay? They're doing this in a biblical feast time point. In other words, there are times that God has set. These are not my times. These are not the Jewish people's times. These are God's times given to the Jews. The Jews honor them. So we are in tabernacles right now. This is the time of tabernacles. It's a 7-day period from last Friday to this Friday. So you ask a great question. It's happening at 2:20 p.m. Just as we called, I powered down my phone and I put it aside. Again, I don't want my phone on doing anything. Ultimately, these people, everything they do is for their agenda, and their agenda is for that of Satan. Okay, so nothing they do is of good intent. The G5 thing that they're testing right now, is something going to happen right now? I don't know, but I do know that ultimately they're going to use it for their benefit, which is not that of humanity. Remember, these people work for Satan, and Satan's agenda is to kill, to steal, and to destroy. And God's, Jesus Christ's agenda is to bring life more abundantly. So we're going to talk about abundance today, and abundantly, because that's what's coming our way, while evil's got his agenda of killing, destruction. We've seen for 3.5 years how horrible these people are. That's the point people need to understand. For the past 3.5 years, if people don't realize how disgusting and horrible these people are, I think by the time of now, 3.5 years into this thing, people are really seeing that these people have a disgusting agenda. That's their whole plan. So with what you're saying with this testing, we ultimately, no one knows what they're going to be doing with the test itself. So I think from a safety standpoint, I just power down my cell phone, leave it all alone, and turn it back on later this evening, and we'll kind of just see what happens. But to answer your question, if we go back to Tabernacles, so September 29th, there are 7 feasts in God's calendar, Clay. The spring feasts are 4, and they are finished for this year. There are 3 remaining this fall, of which 2 are already completed. Tabernacles of trumpets is complete. Atonement is complete. And the last one is Tabernacle, started on September 29th and ends this Friday, October 6th. I find it interesting that specifically what's going on right now with the testing, with McCarthy, with the death that just happened recently, last Friday, and interesting that death happened specifically on a very important time point. It happened on Tabernacles. That was the day that Senator Feinstein died. So she died on Tabernacles. And why is that important? Because 4 days before that was September 25. September 25 biblically is what? It's the holiest day of God's year. Why is that important? Well, because the holiest day of the year is God's year, Yom Kippur. So this is an important thing to comprehend and understand. Sound the trumpets on Yom Kippur. This year was September 25, and proclaim liberty throughout the land and all of its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. So that's written in Leviticus 25, 9 through 10. So you sound the trumpet. Yom Kippur is a final day. So Rosh Hashanah was September 15th. After the 10 days of awe, it ends on Yom Kippur, September 25, and all nations are judged on Rosh Hashanah, which is the 15th of September. And their final verdict, this is important, is sealed on Yom Kippur, the day of judgment. So you've had different people on your show. One of the prophetic words of Amanda Grace was, "O wayward sheep, turn from your wicked ways." These people, when you read the scriptures, it says, God will not be mocked, for whatever a man soweth, thus shall he reap. So these people have had a season to turn from their wicked ways. And I want to make this very clear. As of September 25, Clay, everyone has sown their seeds. They've planted their seeds, and you cannot undo now what's about to happen. So Judgment Day was September 25. You know what happened on Judgment Day? Think about this. How could this happen? But it did. Trump walks into a gun shop and holds a Glock 45 on Judgment Day. This was the exact, remember the movie Judgment Day, Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yep.
So on the exact day, Trump's holding a Glock 45 on God's day of judgment. I'm going to repeat. God's day of judgment, Yom Kippur, September 25, Trump's got a Glock in his hand, 45. And you know the thing with Schwarzenegger, I'll be back. So it's funny, but at the same time, too, God's making a very clear statement of what's about to go down in this world. It's really exciting how all of this, all the pieces are coming together right now. We're in October right now. So let's talk about Leviticus, because Leviticus is critical on all of this, because if God's going to intervene, he's going to bring a jubilee on the 50th year. So you know for a fact that Roe v. Wade was overturned just last year. But prior to that, it became law in 1973. See, 73, you can write down and make a huge stink about this, because 73 is when all this began. 73 was Roe v. Wade. 50 years later is 2023. You know that the petrodollar contract was signed with the United States in the year 1973. If you add 50 years, you got 2023 this year. So the Revelation 12 sign plus 6 years is indicating that this is the final year before the year of rest arrives in the year 2024. The calculation for the petrodollar and using Leviticus is 2023. The calculation for abortion and Roe v. Wade specifically from 73 is 2023. And this is an interesting one, which God just revealed to me this week. Wanted to share this with you. There is a thing called the Yom Kippur War. I'm not sure if you know about this, but the Yom Kippur War was also called the October War, and it was initiated by Egypt and Saudi Arabia, or on Syria, on October 6th, 1973. October 6th would be this Friday. It's interesting, but guess what day Tabernacles ends? On October 6th. My point is, if God's going to act and do something, I would say historically, when you study scriptures, he's always moved majority of time on his feast dates. So we've got Tabernacles ending on October 6th, the same day that the Yom Kippur War started, Leviticus cycle 50 years ago. Mathematical perfection. The 6th day, then this Yom Kippur War ended 20 days later on October 26th, which would be this October 26th. And then the formal ceasefire agreement was signed on November 11th. And then the final one, there's a second one that was signed with Syria. The first one was signed with Israel, with Egypt, and the second was signed with Syria on May 31, and that would reflect May 31 of next year, 2024. So the Yom Kippur calculation using Leviticus is also screaming to pay attention to starting this Friday, October 6th, into next week, because all this Friday, the Yom Kippur War would have started, and also the last day of Tabernacles. I just find all of this a coincidence. And if you understand the coincidences, there aren't any in the Bible. They're all by God's design, because he wrote the end from the beginning. Secondly, we know from the prophet Kim Clement, God stated, I will let them bring this nation to its knees. So we are expecting something horrific to happen to the United States. But that's a good thing, because the United States that we know, that we grew up with, at this point is fully captured, fully controlled, fully corrupt, fully bought and paid for. Everyone's working for Satan. They've used this money system, this money magic system, Clay, to buy and pay off every single politician in the world. So we've seen Roe v. Wade overturned. And the next thing that's going to happen is what? The collapse of the US dollar. So we're in October. The movie Hunt for Red October is just coincidentally, talks about October. We've had prophets talk about a military confrontation. We do know specifically that Putin is now selling oil for rubles. That is an act of war. We know what's going on with the United States and Russia. Now, this is kind of awesome. Again, we live in biblical times, not political times. These are not political events. Clay, Netanyahu is now talking of an agreement. So Saudi Arabia and Russia are on the verge of having normal relations. When Saudis make an agreement with Israel, it will bring an end to the Israel-Arab conflict that's been going on for, in this case, 110 years, since 1913. This is incredible. This is the first time in history that Israel will have peace in the Middle East across all the Arab states. And I just find it a coincidence, the prophecy of Kim Clement, the brothers of Goliath stand in glee. Well, we know that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. But guess what happened? The last time I was on your stage in Miami and in Vegas on that exact day, Trump got arrested. But what happened on that same day? The Saudis joined the BRICS nations. Okay, so they joined the BRICS, which means that this deal of Netanyahu, this is about to go down. And when this happens, this will be the collapse of the US dollar as a world reserve currency. They will, all the nations will attack the dollar in a single day. The US dollar will lose its status as the world reserve currency, fulfilling the prophetic word of Kim Clement, we will cripple you. So is this a bad or a good thing? Well, the ones that are using the dollar, the federal, this is not gold. This is not backed by anything. The US dollar, the Federal Reserve note, is not backed by gold. And you can thank Nixon for that in 71. It's no longer backed by the Saudi petro contract because the Saudis now joined the BRICS as of August 24, 2023, this like 6 weeks ago. So they are a part, so there's no more petro in the dollar. There's no more gold in the dollar. The dollar is nothing but paper. The dollar is about to be attacked by the BRICS nations in a single day. It'll lose 30% of its value overnight. But the bigger issue is it's going to lose its status as the world reserve currency. The other countries will not accept it as payment. This will lead to what's going to be called the greatest wealth transfer in human history. The financial tables, Jesus walked into the temple and he flipped the tables on who? The money changers, because he knew for the next 2,000 years, their love of money would be the root of all evil. And look what's happened. You got Rothschild. These are the global elite that run the world. And if you want to understand, like this is actually a good video you sent me I think 2 weeks ago. But you've got all of this ties back to no different than what they were doing at the Tower of Babel. Okay. Gilgamesh. It's more before Gilgamesh. What there was Nimrod. Okay. Nimrod was the first Mason. He was strictly working on Satan's agenda. And what was the agenda? To create a one world government. And so this is what happened. And then as they were building the Tower of Babel, now this is going to be important to understand because the construction of the Tower of Babel never came to completion. Why? Because God intervened. And that's what's going to happen. So the fall of this Babel image is the exact same thing that's going to manifest now into year end. They are trying to build Babel all over again. God intervened. Nimrod he fled after all of this went down, and he fled to Iraq, and this is where he changed his name to Gilgamesh. So Gilgamesh is Nimrod, and then they use the letter G, the Masons. So this goes back all the way to the Tower of Babel and to evil in the garden. This goes back thousands of years, and these people using the Freemasons have now, with their money magic, have controlled the church, the family, the finances, the education, the government, entertainment, and media. This is what's gone down because of the money magic that they create. This money magic allowed Babylon to stand. But the money magic, when God intervenes, this is a visual I can give you. The fall of Daniel 2 prophecy, the Daniel 2 statue, is no different than the fall of Mystery Babylon and the Tower of Babel. So as the Tower of Babel will not be completed. Why? Because God intervenes. Daniel 2, verse 34, while you are watching, a stone carved up by no human hand comes in and strikes the statue of iron and feet and clay and smashes them to pieces, meaning that God will not let them complete the Tower of Babel. It's not going to happen, but they have an agenda and they've exposed themselves. God gives them a season, and their time window is almost up. So all I'm telling you is that we've got a point in time coming where God's going to intervene upon this world. When could it happen? I want to go to like one page I want to pull up here, page 56. So what we want to see is God intervene on this world and stop all of this craziness that's going on. And so when we read Haggai, now I know you've referenced Haggai numerous times in many of your podcasts, as Haggai 2 verse 8 states, the silver and the gold are mine, saith the Lord. So I want to be clear. When God intervenes on our world, like he did at the Tower of Babel, like he did with the Babylon statue of Daniel 2, verse 34, this moment in time is written in Haggai 2, verses 2 through 9. This is one point where it's written. Be strong, all you people of the land, declares the Lord, for I am with you. This is what the covenant with you, because I have a covenant with you. God has a covenant with the United States. God has a covenant with Israel. And my spirit remains among you. Do not fear. This is what the Lord Almighty says. In a little while, I will once again shake the heavens and the earth, the sea and the dry land. I will shake all nations. I will fill this house with glory. The silver and the gold are mine, saith the Lord. The glory of the present house will be greater than that of the former house. And in this place I will grant you peace, declares the Lord Almighty. So the latter house is us. The temple will be greater than that of the former house, which was the apostles. So the glory when it comes upon the earth will be comparable to what happened at the Red Sea, Clay. Understand that Red Sea miracle, yes, Moses raised the staff, but it wasn't Moses who parted it. It was God. After that sea parted, Israel went through and the sea closed. You have to understand the magnitude of that because that was a glory event. You couldn't, number one, go back because the sea was closed. And even if you did take a boat across, Pharaoh was gone and his army was destroyed. There was no one chasing Israel anymore. Where are your accusers? They were gone. And then on the other side of the Red Sea, there was no one chasing them. They were free. They were blessed with finances because they plundered Egypt on the way when they left Egypt. And there was no feeble among them. So you had a great restoration of health. So that led to an incredible time point for Israel, which is coming for the world, because what I read in Haggai 2, verses 2 through 9 is about to manifest when the glory comes on the earth. So that takes me again to calculations. Roe v. Wade is 50 years, 2023. Petrodollar is 50 years, 2023. The Yom Kippur War is 50 years, 2023. The calculation from the Six-Day War to 2017 is 50 years. You then add a 6-year count, 2023. And then when you read Exodus, it says you're supposed to rest on the 7th year, which means specifically that the year 2024 is a time of rest. And there's a coincidence, another coincidence, when you read Psalm 24, Clay. What does Psalm 24 say? Well, what did I say earlier? God's going to bring blessings because he's going to plunder. He's going to be that what's called a Robin Hood moment, right? Take from the rich, give to the poor. That's what Proverbs 13:22 is. The wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. When you read Psalm 24, which happens to be the year 2024, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. And the one who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not trust in idols or swear by false gods, here it is, will receive blessings and vindication from God their Savior, the Lord Almighty, the King of glory. This is next year. Blessings like you can't even comprehend. Vindications like you can't even imagine. The prophetic word of Kim Clement was, they fall and fall. We're supposed to see historic manifestation of events as we race into the end of the year. I find it a coincidence that the Yom Kippur War started on the 6th of October, which is 2 days from now, which is coincidentally the exact same day that Tabernacles, the final feast, ends. I find it interesting that if you do the birth, because when Babylon falls, God's kingdom will be birthed on earth. The kingdom will, when you have your sign, you have the Great Reset versus the Great Awakening. Well, the Great Reset is Klaus Schwab's agenda. How did Klaus Schwab build his empire and work with all the global elite? He used their money system, the money magic. If that falls, they lose their control. The Great Awakening is the other side of the coin. What could be the Great Awakening? The glory manifesting on this earth. And when could it happen? You have to, again, we've talked about Leviticus, numerous examples of Leviticus, how it describes the year 2023. And so we're at a completion of a feast. We've only got October, November, and December left. And we know that God's going to, based on calculations, he's supposed to complete what he's doing before the end of the year, because the year 2024 brings the King of Glory. It brings blessings and vindication. I find it fascinating also, and then you can go maybe ask some questions from here, but next year, like I said, when Israel was proclaimed a state, it was Trump on that exact day was 700 days old. The first day in office, he was 77 years and 7 days old. This summer solstice, when the text came out linking Biden to his father for all the business dealings, Trump was 77 years and 7 days old. I just find it fascinating how this Purim, and we know the story of Purim, it's when Israel was supposed to be killed, the entire nation, because of what's his name? Haman wanted to kill all the Jews. I find it interesting or fascinating, and one heck of a coincidence, that this Purim, Clay, Trump will be married to Melania. They got married on January 22nd, 2005. It'll be exactly 7,000 days to the exact day on Purim, which is March 23rd, 2024, which means that he would have to be in office, because if you study history, Esther was married to the king, which means that he would have to be fully positioned and in power. And then that would lead to what's called the Haman effect, which would be military tribunals, hangings, and executions coming next year. All of this because God is going to provide a window of divine favor. So as horrible as the things are in our world, if you take 3.5 years, it ended on the summer solstice when Trump precisely was 77 years and 7 days old. We are in 3.5 years, we're shooting forward 3.5 years, which would take us into the year 2027. And the prophet, Tim Clement, that prophesied that you would be doing what you're doing, stated very clearly, I am standing in the year 2027 beyond the veil of limitations, which means that all the truths that have been hidden from us get exposed, and we get revealed technologies, blessings, things that we can't even comprehend get exposed to us within the next 3 years. And it's interesting that the next 3 years, there are 3 blood moons on each exact Purim. And we've never had 3 blood moons in a row, ever on Purim, ever. But for these next 3, we've got 3 blood moons on 3 Purims. And then one God revealed to me lastly was the US dollar cycle. You'll notice here in January 21, you don't need to know charts really, but when you look at this, you'll see that this is a historic cycle. The dollar went up into October of last year. This is a 2.2 years, 9 months. It bottomed 3 times. It's topping right now. The dollar as of the end of September and beginning of October is finished. If the dollar's finished, that means, because a cycle indicates that the dollar's finished. It's on its last leg to the upside. If the dollar's finished, what comes next? The fulfillment of the Kim Clement prophecy, the brothers of Goliath stand in glee. We will cripple you. It will fulfill what Netanyahu's doing right now with Saudi Arabia to bring peace. And this is all attached to the collapse of the US dollar.
Bo, when do you perceive, when do you see, when do you guess, or when do you, the US dollar will in fact collapse?
There's 2 points that God showed me that this thing could go down. I believe it's in November, is when this is going to happen. There is a scripture actually that I can pull up for you. I think it's Zechariah, but basically there is a prophetic scripture that actually talks about November.
Because I mean, we have Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They're all openly talking about introducing a new reserve currency. You have Saudi Arabia now. You have Dubai. They're all teaming up with the BRICS, BRICS nations here. This is happening. You're seeing now Russia is announcing that they're no longer using the US dollar to trade oil with China. They're using the Chinese yuan. I mean, you're seeing these things. You're seeing countries like Japan, countries like China. They're basically divesting from the US dollar. So, a lot of our listeners out there their minds have been blown by what you just presented. But on a practical level, as it relates to their dollars, when do you think that the U.S. dollar will cease to hold value in the world's eyes?
I think the charts that I look at are all pointing to the month of October that we're in right now is the first jump that we're supposed to see in precious metals. That will mean the dollar goes down. So that will be the start of it. But I think the big event that we're looking for and waiting for is specifically going to be in November. And this would tie in with harvest, the reaping season. For what a man soweth, thus shall he reap. I find it interesting when you read Galatians 6, verse 7, be not deceived, for God is not mocked. For whatever a man soweth, thus shall he reap, which means that God is going to intervene. And this is a fall, because they're talking harvest. And harvest Thanksgiving is in November. When I read, furthermore, to give you a scripture, Zechariah 1, 7 through 17, it says, my cities shall overflow with prosperity. Well, that sure sounds like a wealth transfer to me. And it says on the 24th day of the 11th month, November 24th. What I'm saying is that God is going to intervene on this world. The number one way he's going to intervene on this world is because he's going to attack their money system, their money magic system. The money magic is why they do what they do. If it wasn't for their money magic, they wouldn't be in control of humanity, of everything in this world. I find it interesting that when Trump got elected on November 8th, 2016, I ran a Daniel cycle of 1,260 days, and within the world, including myself, watched oil go to negative $38 a barrel on exactly the 1,260th day. I find it fascinating 30 days later that the Edenville Dam broke in the township of Hope, Michigan, marking the birth of the latter rain, because 10 days later on Pentecost, the George Floyd riots broke out exactly 40 days and 40 nights from when oil goes to negative $38 a barrel. I find it fascinating 1,260 days from oil going to zero is this November.
So you think this is going to happen near term?
Oh, yeah. It's going to happen before the end of the year. We're going to see something historic go down because next year it will be fulfillment of Psalm 24, the years of blessing. The world is going to be blessed like no other. It's going to be the start of the next 3 years is going to be exactly opposite the prior 3.5 years. What God is doing is he's providing a window. This is important, of divine favor. He's going to give a world a window of divine favor. God's ministry, Jesus Christ's ministry, was 3.5 years, Clay, when he was on this earth. 3.5 years. And that 3.5 years started the 8th, 9th of August on the Maui fires. And when that song came out, The Rich Men from Richmond, that started the 3.5 year cycle into the end of 2026 and the beginning of 2027. I'm showing you the calculations using Daniel cycles of time. So these are not my opinions. I'm just calculating, and then I'm basically giving you with the endpoints. So I find it fascinating that when you do these calculations of time, there's, we've always, they're all pointing to things going down starting this month, because this month, again, Tabernacles is this Friday, it ends. Okay. And then so next week, so we could see something start this Friday. When God intervenes on the world, you can't go back. You can't undo what God's about to do. These people, this is like it's fun to look at history, because Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown in the fire, but they weren't touched. Jesus Christ showed up in the fire. Daniel was thrown in the lion's den. He wasn't touched. Jesus Christ died. That was horrific. But 3 days later, he rose from the dead. You see, every Bible story you look at, it's a massive victory. I started off this presentation. We're not living in political times. We're living in biblical times. We're going to watch something biblical go down that's going to blow people's minds. God, when he intervenes, he creates signs, miracles, and wonders. I've been telling you, and you iterate this all the time, and thank you for what you do, but I've been saying numerous times that Roe v. Wade will be overturned. I go on stage and people scream, they yell, and they're all excited about it, but no one believed it was going to happen, but then it did. I've been on your stage saying the dollar is going to devalue, and you're going to see inflation hit, and everything's been saying for 3-4 years now, and now we're seeing that. I was probably the first guy on your show that went on to say, they create money out of thin air, and it's nothing but money by decree. And all of what I've said is happening. All of it, I don't want glory for this. God reveals things to me. He's shown me how to calculate. No one in the world calculates time like I do, but I don't want the glory for it, because God reveals this to me when I'm sleeping, and I just create charts to make it all illustrative for people so they can see it. But what I'm saying is going to happen. It's going to happen whether you like it or not. You can't stop what God's about to do, because why? You read the Bible, it talks about, the mortal wound. It says evil gets a mortal wound. Clay, what does mortal mean? It means dead, right? Mortal means dead. So evil gets killed. This is in the Bible. But then the mortal wound is healed. And that's the rise of the Antichrist kingdom. That comes in the future, because before evil comes on the earth, God makes a window of divine favor. Because he loves you. He loves you. He loves his creation. He's not going to let his creation get beat up. It's not going to happen. He's going to make a way, because what is God? Way maker, miracle worker, promise keeper. He's the light in the darkness. All of these things are what God is.
But what do you think everybody should do with this information tonight? You're presenting a lot of information that's blowing people's minds. What do you think they should do as a result of this information you've presented here?
Well, first off, when God intervenes, this is going to be horrific, because the supply chain is going to go down. Okay, because why? You might want to buy something from a vendor, but that vendor has to buy it from someone else, and he needs to use his credit card system to pay for things. And so when the banks go down, because of what is a jubilee? You got to understand first what a jubilee is. It's debt forgiveness, debt destruction. Not even forget, it's this destruction of debt. And so the banks are going to go down, which means the Visa system, the credit card system is going to go down, which means the way we normally transact goes down, which means vendors don't get paid, which means store shelves go empty. So what do you need to do? Prepare. The gods all over the Bibles, prepare. There's the 10 virgins, don't be the 5 that have no oil. And so what does prepare mean? Go get some extra water. You talk about this all the time. Go get some extra food. You have vendors that provide provide dry food. But just, if not even dry, because I don't think it's going to be that long, it might be a few weeks or whatever it's going to be, but just have some extra food in the house, so you're not trying to run to the store to empty shelves. They have extra food in the house, and then extra medicines or whatever you normally need, because a lot of this is going to go down. You're just going to go down, period. And this is how it's going to play out. But again, this is the death of Jesus, and then he rose from the dead. And then a new world is born, a new era is born. If you go from January, you do 40 weeks delivery. That's this coming Monday, October 9th. Delivery. Does it happen this Monday? I don't know. I'm just telling you, a new era is going to be birthed. The reset versus the awakening. We're going to see the reset take a hiatus, and the awakening is going to manifest, and we're going to get a window of time of divine favor. And so make sure you've got some food, make sure you've got some water, make sure you got any other essentials you need in the house. And those that do have money in the bank, okay, I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm telling you, Haggai 2 verse 8 says, the silver and the gold are mine, saith the Lord. Clay, all the time, you put Andrew Sorcini on stage. We've talked to him. I know him. He's a friend of mine. He's like yours. And you know what? He sells precious metals. If you got money in the bank, you got 401ks, you got cash in the bank, you do what you want with it. But I'm telling you, it's that money's a fraud. It's created out of thin air. It's created out of thin air. It's not attached to gold anymore. It's not attached to the petrodollar, to the petrol. It's just paper. It's attached to nothing. And the government, if that doesn't concern you, what's going on in the government system right now, I'm telling you, it's about to go down. And you've literally got Netanyahu right now signing a peace accord. So you're going to sign some kind of agreement with the Saudis, who in essence who have already joined the BRICS. And next thing you know, this is all about to cause mass chaos in the world. So if you got finances, I hope you're paying attention.
Beverly Hills Precious Metals Exchange is a client-focused firm devoted to assisting our clients with precious metals. Our clients range from first-time to serious coin collectors and investors seeking to add precious metals to their investment portfolios. We are not interested in volatile investments, leveraged products, and intangible assets. With rising inflation and the devaluing of the dollar hurting middle-class families, investing in gold and silver ensures protection for your hard-earned money. Save the value of your money today by investing in gold and silver at Beverly Hills Precious Metals.
So if you got finances, I hope you're paying attention. I hope that, in your heart, this resonates with you, because I showed you math events that are just, you can't discredit the math that I've shown you. And so when the financial system flips, it's going to be like Jesus walking a temple, flipping the tables, financial tables on money changers. And so if you got precious metals, the Bible, Matthew says blessings are 30, 60, 100-fold. What does that mean? $20 silver today, when God multiplies first his damages, which is times 7, $140 silver is going to come in a heartbeat. When God intervenes, you're going to see silver go to 60, 70 bucks, pull back, blow to over $100 very quickly. And that's only damages. Then you're going to get 30-fold, which is $600 silver. You're going to get $1,200 an ounce silver, and 2,000 plus an ounce per dollar silver coming in the next year after, but it's coming, because the financial system is going to blow. 45 will return to rebuild what God destroyed. When the BRICS attack and destroy the dollar, the prophecy is and then David will raise a simple stone, gold. When he does that, he's going to back the treasury dollars, not the Federal Reserve. No, he's going to back the treasury dollars with gold. So the U.S. treasury dollars notes will be backed by gold, real currency. And then we will step back into the world stage as a superpower with gold as the transactional instrument of the world. And all of the world will be using gold for transactions. You'll go to the store, you'll buy something for $500, you'll give them an ounce of silver. If silver is worth $600, they're going to give you $100 back in the U.S. Treasury note. The way you transact today is about to change forever. Forever. It will never be the same when the BRICS attack the US dollar and it is dethroned as the world's reserve currency, whether you like it or not, you think I'm crazy or not, it's going to happen, just like Roe v. Wade was overturned.
Oh, you blow my mind every time. Sir, what is your website people can go to if they want to see more of your research there, sir?
Gold2020forecast.com. And that was the beginning of the end. That's when that's when the seals began to open. So that was 3.5 years ago. So gold2020forecast.com, or YouTube. You can put my name in on YouTube and see my videos there, or meet me in Miami.
Bo, thank you so much for carving out time for us, sir. You blow my mind every time, folks. If you haven't gone to Bo's website, go there, check it out. It's a next level amount of research, and if nothing else, folks, I'm telling you, he'll get you into the Word of God and reading the Bible in a way you haven't read before. Bo, thank you so much for your time, your research. I really do appreciate you, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
God bless you, Clay.
Take care. Bye.
Of our currency, I'm talking about our currency being used throughout the world You want it to remain. You want the dollar to remain the world's reserve currency.
Well, I think it's bigger than losing any war. I think if it doesn't, look, we are already reverting to third world status in many ways. You look at our airports, you look at our terminals, you look at our filthy roads and broken roads and everything else. We're like a third world country. We have something that's very powerful, and that's our dollar all over. But you take a look at what's happening to it now with other countries not using it. And you know, China wants to replace it with the yuan. And it was unthinkable with us. Unthinkable. Would never have happened. Now people are thinking about it. That could happen.
BRICS nations have the oil, they have their natural resources. They don't have to put up with it. And they're not going to put up with it. And remember, 2/3 of those hombres are not buddies, not friends of this constitutional republic we have. They're our enemies or rubbing up on our enemies.
Where does money come from? So it's a foreign concept to most people. But I mean, dollar used to just be a promissory note. It was a promise that you could redeem that dollar for the equivalent in gold, right? That was what controlled and stabilized currencies. We don't have that anymore. And since 1971, we haven't had that, right? A gold-backed currency. So now your currency is backed by nothing other than the credibility of the issuing government. So you have to ask yourself the question, do you trust the government? And if the answer is no, then why would you trust their currency? Because it's the same thing.
I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connolly to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States. Now, what is this action, which is very technical, what does it mean for you? Let me lay to rest the bugaboo of what is called devaluation. If you want to buy a foreign car or take a trip abroad, market conditions may cause your dollar to buy slightly less. But if you are among the overwhelming majority of Americans who buy American-made products in America, your dollar will be worth just as much tomorrow as it is today.
I don't save dollars. I don't save loonies, Canadian dollars. I don't save yen. I don't save any of that stuff. I save hard. I do mean hard. Gold and silver.